You felt it. Someone walked into a room, not the loudest person, not necessarily the tallest, or the most conventionally attractive, and before you registered anything specific about them, the emotional weather of the room shifted. You looked up, other people looked up. Something in the space adjusted around the person who had just entered, and nobody named it, because nobody had the vocabulary for what they had just felt. That thing has a name. It's called presence. Most people spend their lives trying to develop it, and almost none of them understand what it actually is. If you've spent years watching certain people effortlessly command rooms while others fade into them, and quietly wondering what the difference actually is, the answer isn't what most self-help books have taught you. Presence isn't confidence practiced in a mirror. It isn't a trick of posture. It isn't extroversion or good looks or louder voice. It's a specific psychological state, and once you see what it actually is, both the mystery and the frustration of trying to fake it disappear. Here's the thing nobody talks about. Every person moving through the world is doing one of two things at any given moment. They're either fully inside their own experience, attending to the room they're in, the person they're talking to, the sensation of being in their own body, or they're partly outside it, monitoring how they're being perceived, adjusting their behavior for the reaction they want. Most people are in the second state most of the time. It's a low-grade, constant leak of attention outward, toward the imagined judgment of the room. The person with presence isn't leaking. Their attention is inside themselves, and the moment they're in, they're not tracking whether you're impressed. They're not performing calm. They aren't managing your reaction. The room can feel this, whether the room knows it can or not, because a person who isn't asking anything of the room is unusual, and the human nervous system notices unusual, always. Executive coach Olivia Fox Cabane, whose 2012 book The Charisma Myth organized the research on this phenomenon for a general audience, identified three components of what she calls charisma: presence, power, and warmth. Presence, in her framework, is the specific quality of being fully in the interaction, uninterrupted by internal noise or external performance. Communication researcher Mark Knapp, whose foundational work on nonverbal immediacy began in the 1970s, documented that humans read this quality within milliseconds through cues we can barely describe consciously. Eye contact that doesn't perform, body orientation that doesn't manage, a stillness that isn't holding a pose. Philosopher William James, writing in the 1890s, made an observation that anticipated all of this by a century. He argued that the self extends into and includes the space around it. When a person is fully inside themselves, that self fills the space they occupy. When a person is leaking outward for approval, the self contracts and the space around them feels empty. Everyone in the room can sense which one is happening. Picture two people walking into the same room. The first person walks in scanning, checking who noticed them, whether their hair is right, whether they seem confident enough, whether the room is friendly. Everything about them is a small transmission outward, asking for a response. They might be conventionally attractive. They might have practiced their posture. The room reads them within 2 seconds, and what the room reads is, this person is asking us for something. The second person walks in and is just there. They're looking at the person they came to see. Their attention is on the actual moment, not on their own performance in the moment. They're not asking the room for anything, because they're not tracking the room. And the room, without knowing why, adjusts. People look up. Someone shifts their body slightly. The emotional weather changes. The second person didn't do anything to earn this. They stopped leaking, and the room felt the difference between a person who is there and a person who is trying to be seen. Presence isn't a technique, it's the visible signature of not needing the room's response. But here's where it gets interesting. The people who most obviously lack presence are usually the ones trying hardest to have it. Every technique they learn, the power pose, the practiced eye, contact, the deep voice, becomes another thing they're doing outwardly, another way of asking the room for a specific response. The techniques feel like solutions from inside. From outside, They read as more leaking, not less. The person who learned to fake confidence looks less present than the shy person who has simply stopped worrying about how they're being read. But there's more going on than just technique. Presence tends to develop, when it develops at all, through experiences that force a person to become okay with themselves in the moment. Long solitude, real hardship, meditation, therapy, or the specific kind of aging where someone stops caring what strangers think. The common ingredient isn't confidence. It's the loss of the need to be perceived a specific way. Once that need drops, the leak stops. Once the leak stops, presence appears without ever being aimed at. And here's the kicker. The cultural framing of presence has been almost entirely as something you build outward. Better posture, better voice, better clothes, better story. That framing is backward. Presence isn't built outward. It's what remains when the outward building stops. The people who have it aren't people who added something. They're people who release something, the need to be seen the way they want to be seen. And what remained is the self that had been buried under all the reaching. Now let's be honest. There are versions of pull that feel like presence but aren't. Performative charisma, the practiced speaker, the trained influencer, the person who has drilled the mechanics, can produce a first impression effect that looks similar. So can narcissistic pull, where the intensity of the person's self-focus is so complete that everyone else feels absorbed by it. Both can feel like presence in the first minute. Neither sustains. Real presence deepens the longer you're in the room with it. Performative charisma tires you. Narcissistic pull leaves you feeling smaller when you walk away. The test isn't the first impression. It's whether you feel more like yourself or less like yourself after time spent with them. But for the person watching this and quietly wondering whether presence is something they could ever have, here's what's actually happening. You aren't missing a trait the presence people were born with. You're doing exactly what they used to do. Leaking outward, monitoring, managing, performing. The techniques you've been trying to learn are more of the same thing in a different costume. The shift isn't a skill to acquire. It's a habit to release. The work isn't to build presence. The work is to notice when you're leaking, when your attention has drifted outward to monitor how you're being read, and to bring it back inside your own experience. Over time, the returning becomes the default, and the room feels the difference before you do. There's something quietly true about a person with presence. They aren't performing anything. They aren't hiding anything either. They're just there, inside their own experience, with the room around them, and no small transmission asking the room to respond a certain way. Everyone else in the room can feel the difference because the difference is what a nervous system was designed to notice. Someone who isn't asking anything of you is rare, and rare is what human attention is built to track. If you've spent years watching other people have this thing and wondering why you couldn't, this might be the moment to consider that they didn't earn it by adding. They earned it by releasing, and the releasing is available to anyone who stops trying to be seen the way they want to be seen. You don't lack presence. You've been leaking. The self that presence people are inhabiting is the same self you already are. And the shift is not a skill to acquire, but a habit to release, one small returning at a time. If you're the person I've been describing for the last 8 minutes, the one who has spent years quietly watching other people have presence and wondering what was missing in you, I want you to hear this. Nothing is missing. What you've been reading as a trait the others were born with is a habit they let go of, and letting it go is available to you too. If any part of this landed for you, I'd love to know. Tell me in the comments about a person you've known who had this quality, or a moment when you felt it in yourself. If you want more videos, that name, what's actually happening in the patterns most people never have the language for, that's what this channel is for. Hit subscribe. See you in the next.